Hello folks, welcome to another Darktable landscape video. In this one we are going to be looking at something slightly different, not Darktable as such, but how to use another free and open source software package called Inkscape to create some photo layouts, much like the one you see on screen here. Let's get into it. Okay, so I have gone through a collection of photos all from the same shoot at a place called Torridon in Scotland, northwest Scotland, a beautiful spot. And I was going to show how I process these, but really it's much the same process as you've seen in all my other videos, really, more or less. So I did record that, and then it was mostly me going, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So do check out more or less any of my other videos and you'll get an idea of my general process. And then what I've done is I've just exported these all to the same folder at maximum resolution, just as JPEGs, so that they're ready to print if that's what we're going to do with our image. And we'll get those into Inkscape and make a start. So first of all, a little about Inkscape and how you can get hold of it. It's free, it's open source. When I switched to Linux recently, and the eagle-eyed among you will see I've now had to switch back to Windows, unfortunately, but there we are, them's the breaks. When I switched to Linux and ditched the Adobe suite of software, one of the most pleasant surprises I had was just how good Inkscape is as a replacement for the likes of Adobe Illustrator. Inkscape is really up there with the best of them. It's a fantastic package. I was very pleasantly surprised. I've come back to Windows, as I said, but I haven't gone back to Adobe, partly because Inkscape is so good and does so much. One of my other hats, along with being a landscape photographer, is a web developer, and that generally entails the ability to make some kind of graphics at some point, maybe logos or icons, things like that, graphic elements for web pages, and Inkscape is really good for that. So to get hold of it yourself, you can just head to inkscape.org, download it. It's available for Windows, Linux and Mac OS. Install, and away you go. So when you first open up Inkscape, if this is your first time using it, you'll be presented with the quick setup dialog, and that just lets you choose your theme. Keyboard shortcuts, I've got mine set to Illustrator because I've used it for many years and I'm kind of used to those keyboard shortcuts, but you can leave them as is. And you can also choose the kind of icon theme if you want to. And then you can go to time to draw, and that will let you set up a blank document in more or less any size. I'm going to choose A4 portrait because I'm in Europe and we use the ISO paper standards, but you can choose pretty much whatever you like in pretty much whatever orientation you like as well. You may want, say, a landscape orientation book. I've got a fairly good mix of landscape and portrait orientation images, so I can mix it up, and I'm just going to keep it simple with an A4 portrait. So I'm going to double click that and Inkscape will open up. Now by default it has a slightly confusing setup where this is the page and it's dark grey, which baffles me. I'm not sure why you would want a dark grey page by default. So you can change that quite easily by going to the File menu and going to Document Properties. And then here on the right hand side you can change the colours of these elements. So I'm going to make my page white. I'm going to make my border relatively dark so I can see where the edge of the page is. And I'm going to make my desk, the background here, darker as well. This makes more sense to me. And you can set that as a default by editing a template page, but for now we'll just stick with this one. You can also do things like change the orientation of the page here and the size if you want to change that afterwards, and various other things like guides and so on and so forth. But I'll leave you to explore those things on your own. And so if we look at my kind of preview layout here, the first thing we're going to be making is our front page, which is kind of one of the iconic views of Torridon, of the road into the glen. And we've got kind of a little bit of a photo effect here. This is kind of the text masked through so you can see the photo behind it. A bit of a title, and that will help just kind of teach a few basic concepts of Inkscape. So let's get going on that. So to pull in our first image, we'll go to File and Import. And here's my folder of JPEGs. I will choose the first one. And you can see it's kind of coming at a relatively large size, so you can see it's a full res file. I'm going to hold the Control key down and roll the mouse wheel so I can zoom out. And if I go up to the top right hand corner here, you can see I've got snapping on, which is this kind of magnet icon. So that means it will snap to the edges of the page, which is very handy. So I'm just going to snap it to this corner. You can see the resize handles are already on by default. If I click in the middle, this will change to rotation handles. If I click again, it goes back to scale handles. And you can click and drag to scale as with many other packages. And if you want to maintain the aspect ratio, which we do, of course, in this case, we don't want to distort the image, I can hold Control and just drag that in. I don't care too much about this cropping off. I haven't done any cropping of my images in Darktable because I can do that from within Inkscape. So that's fine. So to zoom this to fill my screen, I can just do Control-0. If I make sure I click into Inkscape first, there we go. And if we want to stop Inkscape displaying anything outside the page, you can just see along here the page border. I can go back to my document properties and click clip to page, and then it won't show anything outside the page. And of course, when we export this probably as a PDF or JPEG, it would automatically crop to the page itself anyway. And so now we'll do our text here at the top. So just to show the kind of layering system here, we can go to, let's have a look, layer. Layers and objects, or you can see the keyboard shortcut there, Shift Control L. That may be different depending on your keyboard's shortcut setup that we saw in the first step. You can see we've just got one layer here with an image in it, and I want to kind of block out the shapes that I'm going to use for my clipping mask. So if we look back to our preview, you can see that we can see the photo at the top, and then there's a white box and the text is clipped through. So I need to draw a box over the text here, sorry, over the photo here, add my text, and then I can clip that to the image itself. So I'll go over to the rectangle tool here on the left-hand toolbar, and I will draw a box. The color doesn't matter, the shape doesn't matter. You can obviously adapt this to the particular photo you're using. If you want to see through this shape to kind of get a better idea, you can go down to the bottom where it says O, which is O for opacity, and you can maybe make this 50%, and then you can see through. If you want to change the color, you can do that as well. You can say click red to make it blindingly obvious. This is kind of an element that we're not going to keep, if you like. So that's fine. If I want to resize that, I can click back to my selector tool here, and I can drag the handles. It's fairly intuitive. Let's say about there. And now I want to add my text to crop out of the photo here as well. Okay, so we'll add our text. The text tool is this capital A with a cursor after it here. And then we want to view all our fonts. So we can go to text, text and font. This font picker is new to version 1.4. It's a much more intuitive font picker than the previous version. I don't believe it's enabled by default, something you turn on the settings because it's still technically a beta feature. It still works very well. So if your font picker doesn't look like this, you can enable it by going to Edit, Preferences, and then go to the Interface section, Windows, and it'll be defaulted to List Font and Styles. You can change that to Unified Font Browser, Experimental. You may need to restart the software, and then you'll get the same font picker as you can see here. So I've got my text tool selected. I'll click there. Doesn't matter the size and the location at the moment, and we'll say Torridon, and we'll click the selector just to change that and get it roughly in position, and hold Control and drag to resize. Now this isn't the font I want, as you can see it's a different font from our preview. The font I actually want to use is Bibas Neue, which is there. That's a free font you can get from Google Fonts, probably various other sources as well. And let's position this. Now you can see that my snapping is still on, which can be a little bit kind of aggressive. So I'm just going to turn that off for now. I'm going to scale it up so it's roughly filling the same space with a little bit of a border. And to center this, to align it, we can use the alignment tools, which you can access by going to the object menu and then align and distribute, and it will appear on your right hand panel here. And so here we've got our alignment options, which are very powerful actually. So you can change what it's aligning relative to. At the moment we just want it to be relative to the page, and we'll click this third icon here, center on the vertical axis, and that will ensure our text is perfectly centered. Okay, so now it's time to build our clipping mask. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to set it so that everything that's red is going to be visible, and anything that's not is going to be white. It's going to kind of be the background color, if you like. So we're essentially wiping out these clouds, but we'll be able to see them through the text here, and we'll be able to see the photo through this block. So to do that, I'm in my layers panel here. I'm just going to click the text, hold shift and click the image. So essentially selecting everything on the page. Could do Control A as well. And we're going to go to the shape builder tool, which is the third one down on this panel on the left, right there. And then by default, we're adding to the shape. So you can see that plus icon on my cursor. I'm going to click the rectangle and I'm going to click the body of each letter. I'm not going to click the holes inside the O, the R and the D letters. I'm just going to click the body themselves. And then I'm going to click the tick button here, the accept button, and that will make our clipping mask. So now we can see that we can see those clouds through here. We can see the photo, but everything else is just white. Now if we check back on our preview, you can see I've added some text here, a photographic collection, and also just kind of a who it's by, namely me. So let's add that as well. So we'll go back to our text tool here, and we'll click and we'll type in photographic collection. You can see it's remembered our previous kind of color and font settings. It's no problem, we'll change those in a second. So let's first of all size this up. I'll put snapping back on so that we can align it perfectly with this N here. In fact, I'm just going to drag that over so that we can fit everything on the page. There we are, we've snapped to that N. Now I can use the arrow keys just to adjust easily without snapping, kind of taking control. Adjust that till it looks good. And I want to change the color. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool for this, which is down here. I think it's the I key, or maybe the D key, in fact, yeah, for grabbing a color. And I'm just going to grab a color from one of the various tones in the image down here. So let's try, say, this dark green, maybe that slightly darker. Want some contrast. There we go. And I've misspelled photographic, so I just click, press T to go back to the text tool and click again. Maybe make it slightly smaller. There we go. And now we'll add our little kind of strapline bar at the bottom here. So we'll go back to our rectangle tool. We'll click and drag. And make sure our opacity is up to 100 down here on the bottom. And let's choose another color. So we'll go back to our eyedropper tool as well. We'll go for that brown. And before I do that, let me just check the opacity of this color. Yeah, this is still on 50%, so let's change that to 100 as well. And just reselect. It's very dark. There we go. Yeah, let's go with that one. So go back to our text. Turn off snapping again. Just put some text in here. So by Darktable landscapes. And if you want to change the text kind of font size, you can do that in the text dialog on the right here by dragging the font size slider here at the bottom, or you can just scale it like a shape. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to put this in here, snap it as well. If we snap it to here and then use Shift and the down arrow, we can align it perfectly with the rest of the text. And then we'll grab, let's say, a different color here. Want it to stand out too much. There we go, should do us. Okay, so there's our front page done, our front cover. Okay, so now let's add our first actual page. So we'll add a new page to the document by clicking the Pages tool in the bottom of the toolbar right over here on the left, and then clicking this little green plus icon in the top left. And that will just add a new page of the same size that you've already got. And let's add a margin so that we're not going right to the edges of the page. Give us something to snap to. So we'll go to this dialog box here, this little input box, where it says 0 millimeters at the moment. I'm just going to type in 10 millimeters, and you can see this faint blue line, which doesn't appear in print or kind of export, but will appear on the screen for us to use to keep a nice margin. And then we'll pull in another photo. So let's go to File, import, and I'll just go to my folder, and let's go for this one. There it is again. Control the mouse wheel to roll out. I've grabbed the page there rather than the thing. So going back to our selection tool so that we're actually selecting objects. Again, control and drag to keep the aspect ratio as you scale. And then if you want to move the canvas around, you can just hold the space bar. You don't need to click, you can just hold the space bar and drag. It's super handy. And as you can see here, I didn't crop this photo in Darktable because, as I said before, you can do this with a clipping mask in Inkscape. So I'm going to kind of use that to crop off this bottom portion here. And you can use the tool all over this kind of project to change the shape of photos as you need them. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I've still got snapping on, and let's just choose a color again. So I'll go for red, and in fact I need to just click on there to see what I'm doing. Change that to 50%. There we go. And now I can shape this tool. The snapping is on, so it will snap to the photo. Grab this up here. And as before, what we've covered is what we're actually going to display. That's what's going to show through the mask. So this will be cropped off. And the quick way of doing this is just to select both things. So we've got the rectangle and the photo, and then just use Control or Command if you're on a Mac, 7. The 7 key, and that crops. If you want to undo that, you can always do Control Command Z. Or if you want to come back when you've already done some other things and you've kind of lost the step in the undo queue, you can right click and click Release Clip, and that will undo that, and you can re-modify it as you like. So I'll just redo it now. Control 7. And let's just have a look down the bottom here. So this is maybe a bit big, so I'm just going to scale it again. Whoops. That's because we've got a snap on. Let's just turn snap off. There we go. Well, it's too huge. It's not the world's most amazing photo. It's just kind of more of a scene setter. And then let's pull in another one here. So again, File, Import, or Control I. You can see the shortcut there. We'll grab this one and scale it down. Let's just pop it in the corner. I've got snapping turned off, so I'll pop it back on to make it easier to scale. Gone over the margin a bit there. There we go. It's a relatively simple, straightforward photo layout. And I'll show you how to add captions later on. For now, let's just add another page. So pages, new page. It remembers our margin settings from the last page. File, Import, and we'll grab, let's grab this otter. Now this is a landscape orientation photo. And so I'm going to crop this again and just kind of decide on the actual crop visually. I think that's pretty good. So I'll just grab a box, make it fit the margins more or less, maybe crop out a little bit like that. And then go back to our selection tool, click the photo, click the shape, Control 7. Very straightforward. And you're not limited to rectangles. I've done a rectangle here because that's just the style thing I'm going for. I could equally well grab a circle, hold Control to make sure it remains circular, do the same thing and make a circular crop. And there's a full suite of shape tools in Inkscape, stars. You can use the pen tool to draw any kind of shape you can imagine. As you've seen on the front page, we can also use text as a shape to do this. So you can let your imagination run wild and your creativity and produce kind of any shape you like to make an interesting layout for your photo book or maybe web page mock-up, something like that. For now, I will stick with a good old-fashioned rectangle. And let's add another page. So pages, new page, and I'll add some, maybe make a 3 photo layout for this one. So let's go for this one, I think, first. I'm going to put that in this top left corner. This might need a crop as well, I think. Yes, it will. This foreground's a bit empty, so I'll crop that in a second. And we'll import another one. Let's go for these larches. Again, this will definitely need a crop because it's kind of too wide. So let's crop this one first, I think. We'll crop this one about here. I'm just going to scale this up to there. And make sure both are selected. The last two in our image stack there on the right. There we go. And I'm actually not too bothered about that crop, it's okay. Let's pull another image. So we'll grab, let's say this one of the river. Pop that in the bottom corner, scale it down. Now what I might do is just make sure the kind of the gutter, the space between these is a bit more even. Scale it up like that and then grab a quick clipping rectangle like that. And there's no room for text here, but what we'll do is we'll put text down here and mark it as the opposite page. It's a fairly standard magazine and photo procedure. Okay, new page. I'm sure you're getting the idea by now, but keep going for completion's sake. Let's grab this one. Again, holding control to maintain aspect ratio. Pull in another photo. Let's grab this deer. And whoops, another new page. Let's do a large kind of final page spread, if you like. Snapping is turned off again, so we'll pull that back in. And you can see here that the aspect ratio of an A4 page is slightly different to the photo. So if I'm going to crop anything here, I'll probably crop the sky, which is pretty empty. So I'm going to nudge this up, or drag it indeed. And then I can just drag the whole page and select the photo as well. And I'll do that in here. And Control 7. There we go. So the final step is just to add kind of a back cover. We'll go to new page again. And we don't need a margin on this one. I'll take that off, just delete it, hit enter, or even press 0 actually, I think is what you need to do. There we go. And let's grab our brown rectangle from here. We're going to Control C to copy, which is fairly standard, and then Control V. And we'll just drag this to cover the whole page. Pull in another photo. So let's pull in this last one of Slioch here. We'll do Control, and if you can hold Control Shift, then you'll scale to the middle. So Control just scales to the far corner, Control Shift scales to the middle. And we want to center this on the page, so we'll go to our Align tools here on the right and click the center tool. There we go. Maybe make this a bit bigger. There we go. And now we'll add some text. So we'll go to our text tool again. See what font we're using on here. Let's see. Okay, we're still in transparent red with a stroke as well. So if I'm going to click white, and I'm going to hold Shift and click the cross. So clicking clicking a color with the left mouse button just sets the fill color. Holding Shift sets a stroke color. So if I hold Shift and click red, you can see that the stroke, the outline of the shape is changed to that color. So I want no color around my stroke, so I hold Shift and click the cross here. That's transparent essentially. And make sure my opacity is all the way up. And there we go, we've got white. And again, we'll center this on the page. Nudge it up a little bit, make sure we've clicked inside. It's maybe a bit too big, so I'm going to Control Shift and drag just to bring it down about there. It's fine. And now let's do some kind of paragraph text. So rather than just clicking, I'm going to click and drag a box. And that generates a kind of a text box paragraph. I'm going to head to lipsum.com, which is a lorem ipsum generator, which is the kind of standard placeholder text for any kind of design work, really, web design, graphic design, just some random Latin gibberish to fill text boxes when you don't have any copy to put in there. I'm going to pop that in. I'm going to make sure I'm using center aligned text, so that's kind of the standard icon up here. I don't want to use this font. This font's kind of a display font, not a body font. So I'm going to use a font called Inter. Let's go for intermedium, and we'll change the font size to, say, 14. Increase the line height, and there we go. We could put an ISBN and a barcode on here if we really wanted to, but we won't. So that's our finished layout in terms of the images. Now we'll add some text captions. Okay, so let's start adding captions with this photo here. So again, we're going to come back to our text tool, and you can set text size here in the dialog on the right, or you can set it along the top toolbar here. I don't want Inter for this one. I want to go for a serif font, so I've got a font called Crimson Pro. Again, this is available on Google Fonts for free, and let's say 14 point for now and see how we go. I'm going to reduce the line height, the line spacing, and I'm just going to click. I'm going to turn snapping off and just pop in a text box here, and let's do some test text. So we can see that our problem here is that our text is set to white. It's also center justified. So let's fix that. We'll go to our text tool. We'll first of all hit the left justification button. We'll select the text we've got with Control A, and we will click not a complete black, but a very dark grey. Generally things look better when they're not totally black and white in this kind of context. And that's maybe a tad large, so let's go back to our text tool, which is T, and change it to 12. There we go. Yeah, it's more like it, just kind of understated caption. And we'll type something like Torridonian geology showing a good effect. Okay, and now we'll add maybe some kind of settings, the settings we use to take the photo. So I'll do Control D, which is duplicate, and I'll just use the arrow key, shift and arrow, to move it down. And we'll say this was, I think it was probably something like F11, 1/200th of a second, and ISO 200. Okay, and let's say we'll make it italic. We want to differentiate it from the other text above, and maybe a slightly lighter, kind of less obtrusive colour, a light grey, say, or more of a middle grey. Something to differentiate it from the actual caption text itself. And yeah, that's pretty good, I think. So now we've done that kind of block of text, we can use the same thing that we did to produce this, just to duplicate and move it down here. So we'll do Control D, drag. There we go, and then we've got the same layout already done for us. So we say a fisherman's cottage. The flag there. Fisherman's cottage, looking down Loch Florida. Now you can see what's happened here is because we've got a predefined text box size, it's wrapped to the next line, and then it's blocking this. So if we want to change that text box, we just grab this diamond and drag it out. So you could ideally just kind of make it the full width, and then that wouldn't happen, or you may want it to wrap, in which case you could just kind of wrap it like that. Use your move tool and drag it up. If you hold Control while you drag, then it will snap to kind of defined angle, so you can drag it straight up without it kind of losing a couple of pixels here and there, left and right. But for now, I'm just going to keep it in one line. Okay, so I've gone through and added captions to all my pages in exactly the same way. Nothing particularly kind of groundbreaking, just using the normal kind of text align and text adjustment options that you're probably familiar with pretty much any program from kind of Word down. And now the final step is to export this in whatever format we want. So we can do this by going to File and Export. And then on the right, you have a whole new panel to look at. By default, the option is either SVG or PNG, depending on how you've got it set up. I think by default was PNG in this case. And you can export the whole document, you can export pages, or you can have a custom selection. So by default, if you're exporting the whole document as a PNG, it will put the whole thing as a kind of transparently backed one giant image, which is not really what we want. My vision for this is kind of maybe a PDF, an ebook, for example. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the format to PDF. And you can see from the preview here that this checkerboard background denotes the fact that the background is going to be transparent. We don't want that. We want a white background. So we can go to background color, and then we've got the color, the saturation, the lightness, and the alpha value, which is the opacity. And it's this we need to change to make a white background. So just drag that slide all the way up to 100, and that will make it white. And we can see our preview is updated here. And we don't want to export the document. We want to export pages of the document. So I'm going to click page. And you can see here that we can now select which pages we export. So we've got 7 pages. We can turn them off and on and whatever we want to do. So let's turn them all on. And let's call this Torridon 2, because I've already exported one as a test. And we click export. We'll go away and think about it for a little while, depending on how big your file is and how many photos you've got and how big the photos are. And that's done. So now we can check out our PDF. Okay, so here's our PDF. I've opened this in my PDF opener of choice, which is Sumatra PDF, if anyone's curious. And we can see that we've got a PDF with separate pages, as we defined, all nicely laid out. So this would make a great ebook, for example, or you could send it to a printer for printing a book. Okay, so there's our basic photo layout with Inkscape. Do check out the package. It's very powerful, much more powerful than I've been able to show you here. It's a much more useful package for things like, well, obviously photo layouts, posters, that kind of thing, than, for example, Word or Publisher. It's a much more useful program than those. So I would encourage you to check it out. It's free, it's open source, like Darktable, and it's good fun to do something a little bit different with your photos rather than just export them and then stick them onto social media. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Do hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you on the next one.